Welcome to What to Look For. Now I get asked all the time, how do you tell if something is vintage or original or not? Well, today we're going to look at G.I. Joes, and I'm going to tell you how you can tell if you're buying something that is part of that original run and not something from a later line. The first thing we got to do, guys, is define what is an original G.I. Joe or a vintage or classic G.I. Joe, at least as far as 3 3/4 inch figures go. So the original line actually ran from 1982 to 1994 uninterrupted. So really, if you want to get down to it, 82 to 94, that is considered classic vintage G.I. Joes. It doesn't matter what era you were collecting in. For me personally, I stopped around 88 or so, 88, 89. But that line still ran till 94, so everything 94 and back is considered vintage. After that, there was a gap, and in 97, 98, they released more G.I. Joes, and then another 2-year gap until the year 2000, and they've basically been releasing Joes from 2000 to current. See, in the early thousands, it was a lot of kind of older looking Joes re-released with a different paint scheme. In 2007, you had the 25th anniversary come out, and then with the release of the movies, you had a whole new wave and line of G.I. Joes that were movie based. Everything in the later part of the thousands, well, the current probably last like 3 or 4 years, has been collector series exclusives or convention exclusives. But we are looking at that original line, 82 to 94, and I'm here to tell you how you can tell what you're looking for. One thing that you're going to hear me say ad nauseum if this series continues is date. Check for a date, look for a date, always look for a date. Most older toys were not only branded with the year, but the toy manufacturer name as well. In the case of the G.I. Joes, you have both. Always look for a date, and you always look for Hasbro. Hasbro is on every single vintage G.I. Joe. If Hasbro is not there, you have a knockoff. Where can you find these dates on G.I. Joes? The earlier models, 82 to 84, the date was located on the booty. In 1985, they went to the inner thigh of the left leg. So another thing you guys want to look out for are color variants when it comes to Joes. Now I know this might sound a little bit funny, but this was actually a thing that happened. Take Barbecue and Sergeant Slaughter, for instance. The original Barbecue was released in 1985. The original Sergeant Slaughter was released in 1986. Well, in 1989, they got a re-release, a repackaging as the Slaughter's Marauders with a different paint scheme on them. Barbecue went from orange and gray to blue, brown, and a couple of different shades of green. Sergeant Slaughter went from a black tank to a blue tank. His hat color is different and the pant color is different. Now, here's what they did. Although these Slaughter's Marauders line were released in 1989, they used the exact same molds from the previous Joes. Why did they do this? Well, because it was cheaper. And just because the date may be quote unquote wrong, doesn't mean it's still not a vintage G.I. Joe character, because it does fall in that 1982 to 1994 timeline. So you're still getting a vintage G.I. Joe, even though the date might be quote unquote wrong. Although a variant, even color variant, might sound odd when it comes to a toy, you gotta remember that a lot of times, a lot of toys were reused for other toy lines. Simple fact being that molds are expensive. Let me give you an example. The Rancor Keeper from the Star Wars toy line was reused as Friar Tuck from the Robin Hood toy line after the movie came out with Kevin Costner. Same thing with the Ewok playset. That was reused as a tree set in the Robin Hood line. Well, G.I. Joe was no exception to the rule. Why go out and make a brand new mold with a brand new year and spend more money? That's not the name of the game in business. So now we have another example of like G.I. Joes, different colors. However, they did us a solid and they put the correct date on him. The original Cobra Commander with battle armor will say 1987 on his leg. The re-release in 97 and in 2001 are the exact same mold. Everything on it is the same, it's just a different paint scheme. But because it was released in a completely different year as technically part of a different line of Joe, they put the appropriate date on there. In the case of this Cobra Commander figure, there is one other minor difference, just in case you're not sure. There could be other Joes with minor differences as well. In the original, there was a tube that went from the mouth to the side of the head. The side of the head had a peg that the tube connected to. Matter of fact, he didn't even come with a hose in those re-release versions, so there was no point in putting the peg on the side of his head for it to attach. So that's pretty much it, guys. To recap, here's what you need to look for. 1, a date. If it's an early Joe, it's on the back, on the butt probably. And if 85 and later, it's on the inner thigh of the left leg. 2, you have to see Hasbro next to that as well. 3, what you need to know is that original line is 82 to 94. So again, always look for a date, and look, use your resources, guys. This is another big one. Internet. Use the internet. We are living in an age where you can literally find out anything if you'll take the time to use Google. But I know a lot of people won't, and this is why I'm telling you these things. One really good source material is yojo.com. They have all the characters and vehicles from every single year. They have it sorted out between carded figures, mail-in figures, drivers, that kind of stuff, and they have their accessories and everything. That is a really, really, really great source material. Thank you very much, SEO Toy Review, for your stock footage of some of these Joes, because, well, I didn't have those, so thank you. You guys go check out his channel. He does great reviews over there, and I'll see y'all next time on What to Look For.